Welcome to the Money Pig Podcast, presented by Goodwin Investment Advisory, where our mission is to lead you to financial pig, peace, independence, and generosity. I'm your host, Tim Goodwin. Welcome back to the Money Pig Podcast. Today we have the one, the only Joseph Beckford, the fourth, who we affectionately call Beckforth around here. How you doing, Joe?
I made that convenient for everybody, didn't I?
I really appreciate that. That worked out really well.
Serve.
That's what it's all about.
I'm here for you.
That's what it's all about. So, Joe, today we're going to be talking about Social Security. We're going to be talking about concerns about Social Security benefits running out and kind of unpacking Social Security a little bit today. So excited about that topic. Before we dive into it, share with the audience a little something they may not know about you, Joe. Mr. Beckforth.
Something that I feel like I'm such an open book. Everybody knows everything. Okay, so I was in a client meeting today, and the topic of Lebanese food came up. And the client said, have you ever had Lebanese food? And I said, yeah, my grandmother was Lebanese. And they were like, I never knew that about you. I said, well, then I guess you have to keep coming back for meetings. You'll
learn all those great things.
A bit.
That they were like, that's why we came, was to learn this.
100%. So we traded recipes. It was magical.
That does sound pretty magical. That's wonderful.
Yeah, pretty good.
Very cool. Well, Joe, do you know the difference between a piano and a tuna fish?
I'll steal your thunder, because I do know the answer.
Oh, you do?
To that one.
Let's hear it.
Yes. Because you can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish.
Bravo. First time for everything, folks. Of course, Joe comes with the answer to the dad joke.
Okay, so other trivia. That's an old REO Speedwagon album.
Wow. So that's what
out.
You like recall.
Child of the 80s, man. That's where it comes in handy. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep, that's a real thing.
Well, that's a good takeaway. I think, if there was nothing else you heard today, by listening to the podcast, tune a piano, but not a fish. All right. Well, let's get into Social Security talking points. And I know that this creates a lot of angst for folks, Social Security. I always feel like in the 20 plus years I've been doing this business, it just seems like Social Security is always in jeopardy. Like that is just a natural theme. It's like tied in with Social Security, How many people ask you in your financial plans when you were doing those that like, don't count Social Security. It's not going to be there. It's the default, right? Man, all right? The time, it's the default. And I appreciate that like independence, that rugged individualism that a lot of Americans have. I'm sure other people do too, but they're just like, I want to be financially independent of Social Security. But really I'm like, okay, well, we can run that scenario, but Social Security is a pretty substantial income source, especially because of the COLA adjustments, the cost of living adjustments over time.
Right.
And then you and I know when we forecast out our plans or even have clients in retirement that it ends up being a substantial income source, a substantial part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when the news media's job is to scare us about stuff, and tell us the things that are 3 standard deviations away from the mean, they often love to talk about how Social Security is running out and, grandma's not going to be able to buy her groceries. So let's have that discussion. Is Social Security really running out?
It is, put it this way, it's not growing. But running out is different. Like running out makes it seem like, in 3 years, Social Security doesn't exist anymore. And
it's
we're
just
all
zero.
Gonna be broke.
You used to have a couple grand coming in a month and then zero.
Right. So that's not happening. But the trust, as they call it, is not growing. It is sort of depleting. But it is an ongoing model also, right? Because I tell clients, if you look at your Social Security earnings statement over the course of your lifetime and you figure out like, I contributed, $8,000 this one year, and I contributed this and this and this and this. You're going to get paid back in Social Security benefits more than you contributed over your lifetime in a very short order. And so how does that math work? Well, people who work today are paying payroll taxes, and that subsidizes and that kicks in and that carries us forward. So that's how we keep launching. So right now, is it reducing? It's reducing. And right now we're on a trajectory, 2035. The projection is we'll be able to cover 83% of benefits.
Is that 2035 when it's reduced?
Yes.
Okay.
The trust fund is basically kind of out of money at that point.
Okay.
And so what we're relying on is current wage earners and their payroll taxes to be able to handle benefits for the rest of us who will be retired by that time.
So it doesn't go away. It's just reduced because it's still being funded by current workers.
Right. There's just not a big pot of money that is able to grow. Like we take pots of money and invest them for people and grow them. That big pot of money doesn't necessarily exist anymore. Now we're kind of working on cash flow at that point.
Okay. So how likely do you think that will happen? That it'll actually be reduced?
My personal opinion is that what I see and what I tell clients is that one thing we know about America is that we are getting older and we're graying and older people vote.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever your political affiliations are, one thing that is pretty unilateral across certainly my microcosm of clients, but also just across the board, whether you like entitlement programs, you feel good about them, you feel bad about them, universally I hear, don't touch my Social Security.
Right.
I will talk to my congressman. I'll talk to my senator. I will vote them out. So I think popular uprising will make sure that we have to fix it somehow.
Right.
So I have a very small conviction that we're going to let it just go out of business. We're going to make changes. It may not be as robust as it is today.
Yeah.
So some changes are going to have to be made to keep it solvent for sure.
And we've made those
I feel
changes
confident we will.
in the past, it's usually ninth hour, not usually way ahead of time. It's usually, hey, this thing's going to bust or break and we need to do something to fix it. So let's walk right into what are some possible fixes, because I don't feel like it's some mystery or some overly complicated thing that will have to be done to fix the Social Security system as it is today. So walk us through what are some of the ways that the government can say, we'll do these things, we'll make these policy changes, and that will help to fix this.
So there've been a lot of ideas, and these aren't just me creating them. There've been a lot of ideas already floated around, and they just haven't necessarily been voted on. But one of them is, there is a maximum amount of income that you can make on which you pay Social Security tax. So if you're a very high income earner, you'll notice there's a much smaller amount on which you pay Social Security taxes versus what you pay federal income taxes on. So you get a break. They could eliminate that.
Yeah.
They could just say, you're going to pay Social Security tax on all of it, just like you pay on that. That would be a huge revenue boom. They could say the rate of Social Security tax needs to go up.
Just taxing everybody more.
That
to
could
fund that entitlement. Sure.
Yeah, that could be done as well. So that's more like the income generation side. You could also do a cost cutting side, and you could say, well, right now we've already moved full retirement age. Where do we sit at now? Right. It's at 67 for earners today. It could be pushed further. I mean, that's not my hope, but I could see that potentially happening. Maybe 67 becomes 67 and a half or 68 or something like that. As Americans live longer, they've pushed it in the past. That could be done. They could reduce the amount of benefit. Maybe they say, well, you were going to get $1 on the dollar. Now we're only able to give you 90 cents on the dollar, or 95 cents on the dollar or something like that.
Yeah, they could change how it's indexed or averaged or calculated.
So there are costs. So you could, there's an increased revenue side. There's a cost cutting side. You could do a combination of both.
Right.
It's kind of up in the air.
I think one of the, cost cutting sides, it would initially sound very unpopular, but I think at least in our experience with clients, a lot of them don't realize the spousal benefit rule. Right. So your spouse, let's say they didn't work outside of the home very much, right now would be entitled to up to 50%, of that larger benefit from the spouse. So it's a great thing. I think it's an incredible gift. It feels like a gift because it is. The spouse is getting that benefit even though they didn't contribute to it, right? And it's something that we really take seriously when it comes to planning. It's kind of a fun thing to share with clients for the first time. I didn't really work, enough, or I didn't get enough credits, or I didn't really contribute a whole lot. Mine's just a couple $100 a month and his is a couple thousand. It's like, well, they're going to bump yours up to half based on the spousal benefit.
How many times have you been where that was a light bulb moment for a client where they were like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I'm eligible for that?
I know.
Yeah.
They just aren't aware of it. So I feel like that, again, would be unpopular for the folks that are aware of it or the folks that have it, maybe for the up and coming generations that just don't even realize that's a benefit. I mean, that's pretty substantial because you're paying somebody half where they potentially contributed little to nothing towards that. Yeah.
So those are all options, right? Those are all on the table. And what are we going to live with? I don't know, but I guess I hope they choose wisely because their political careers might depend on it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. So let's say I'm, really thinking about retirement because I am 5 or 10 years away from throwing in the towel and retiring.
Mhm.
How worried do I need to be about my benefits being adjusted or the government, having to make some major changes to keep it going?
I think really based on what we were just talking about, that newer horizon potential retirees probably have less to worry about than longer term. Because like we said, the current fund is going to last another 10 years and still is projected, if nothing changes, which we do think things will change.
Yeah.
If nothing changes
we
at all,
change.
we're going to have, they're going to be able to pay basically 83 cents on the dollar to what's out there. So if you're retiring in that next time frame, you're probably a little better off.
Right.
Your benefits are probably going to, if I had to guess, your benefits are probably a little more robust than somebody who is retiring much later than that.
Yeah. We imagine somebody who's in high school or college right now, their Social Security will look different.
Yeah.
By the time they're
I'm imagining when my kids get, old enough to claim Social Security, it won't be necessarily as robust as it is today.
It's got to change overall.
Yeah.
So walk us through a little bit on the education side about how to maximize Social Security benefits. So Social Security benefits can be really taken anywhere between age 62 and age 70. And that ends up being up to the individual, right?
Yep.
So how do I maximize it? What comes into the decision making of when do I tell Social Security, hey, start sending me a check? I know I can send it anywhere between age 62 and 70. I just heard today that one of our clients that turned 70, a check just showed up. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize I needed to turn this on. I guess they kind of by default do it because that's the end, right? And he's got his own reasons with his financial advisor, us, for making those decisions. But how do we walk our clients through that decision?
It's a great question that I get asked all the time.
Right.
And the answer, much to my clients' chagrin, is usually, it depends. And they hate to hear it depends. But the reality is everybody's situation is different. There's no cookie cutter solution. And I have people say, what is the most I can get out of every nickel out of Social Security? And I tell people, well, postpone until 70 because you get an extra bump, which we'll talk about just a sec, and live a really long time so that you get a lot of those big benefits out of it. But there's a cost to doing that, right? Yep. And that is definitely not the right answer for everybody. So why do we say postpone till 70? So right now, full retirement age is 67. So every year that you delay taking it after 67, you get an 8% a year bump in your income payment, right? If you add to that, the Social Security Administration is doing cost of living adjustments that you brought up earlier. It's not unsubstantial that like, wow, my benefit, if I take it at 67 would be this, but if I wait till 70, my monthly benefit looks like that.
And if you add to, at this point, it's a low to no risk return.
Right.
Like you could try to go chase a 10% return in the stock market, but you're taking substantial risk to do that.
Yeah.
At this point with Social Security, you delay, you get that 8% plus COLA adjustment. At this point, it's risk-free.
I mean, that's not inconsequential, right? So that's a potentially really good way to go.
The risk-adjusted return is a huge premium. Yeah.
But it isn't the right answer for everybody because everybody's situation is different. And we were talking about this a little bit before we started. So one reason that might not be the answer for you is, okay, you delay Social Security, especially if you might want to retire before age 70. And I ask people, okay, so what are you going to live on? What does that look like? And for most people, that means, I'm going to have investments that I'm going to have to live on. So you really need to take into account, what does the portfolio look like? How is it invested? What is its longevity going to be? And how's it taxed, right? So if we've got Roth money and if we've got after-tax money, and I can send you distributions that really don't impact your taxes, that might be a great strategy to do. If you have all pre-tax money and I need to send you those same dollar amounts in distributions, but it's 100% taxable income to you.
Right.
Now I'm netting a whole lot less. Yep. And I'm taking out dollars that can't grow later in the future. So, we try to look at lifetime taxes and lifetime benefit of the portfolio. And you might be pounding your portfolio really, really hard up till 70 to where it's to your detriment to do it.
Right.
And so,
yeah, there's Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I'd rather just have this very simple answer, or this, like, here's this easy way to think about it, or this is what works for everybody. And it really is complicated with Social Security, because it's not just how to maximize the benefit, it's how to minimize the taxes, not just that year, over your lifetime,
right?
And minimize the impact to your portfolio, right? The value of your investable portfolio. So I know advisors here, when they're doing that planning, that you guys are looking at all of those things, right?
Yeah,
How do we, you have this, $100,000 of living expenses. There's different things that can cover that, like Social Security. But as far as the timing of it is going to depend on the other things the client has that will impact the taxes, and whether it sucks the portfolio value too fast because they're delaying Social Security, that portfolio doesn't really recover, or whether it puts them at a higher tax situation. Like you said, the distributions of the IRA while you wait to delay, if you're retired, you're being taxed 100% on that tax-deferred IRA, where the Social Security at the most should be taxed 85%.
Right.
So we were talking about, there's this window between 62 and 70. You talked about, okay, full retirement age is 70. You get this great growth, and that's how you would maximize the income, but you've also got to consider the taxes and other things. But what if I say, look, Joe, you're talking here about a podcast about the benefits are about to reduce, and I don't have tons of confidence in the government, and I'd rather keep my investments invested. You guys do great with those. I'm going to start as early as possible. What did you say that was? 62. Great. I'm going to start at 62. What are some things that I need to consider if I'm going to start pulling from Social Security at 62 before my full retirement age of 67, if it's me?
So that is not an uncommon statement. I hear that a lot from people. Like, that's my money. I want it. I earn it. I don't trust the government. Let's turn on the payments. Let's get this going
as soon as possible.
So the government has this really nice carrot and stick approach to Social Security, right? So the carrot is, if you take it at full retirement age or later, you delay your benefit, we'll give you extra money. That sounds great. Well, they're betting you're not going to live that long.
Right.
So it's not because they're nice. It's because it's in their best interest. They're betting they're going to have to make those payments for lesser amount of time. Right. And so that's kind of the mentality of the person who's asking to take it early as well. Like, I don't know how long I'm going to live, which is true. None of us do. So let me take it early. Well, then there's a stick that's associated with taking it early. Like, yes, you can take it early, but just like we're going to give you extra money if you wait, we're going to take money off the table if you take it early. And it's by month. So it's every month that you take it earlier than age 67, all the way back 5 years before that. So there's a monthly deduction in full retirement age benefit that you're going to take anywhere in that 5-year period. So you're looking at 61 month deductions if you take it as early as 62. So that's one part. Another detriment is your spouse's survivor benefit is based off that. So again, part of the whole financial picture, if one spouse has been more the breadwinner, has a much higher earnings, if you don't have a lot of portfolio assets and you don't have life insurance and things like that, you take your benefit early, you don't have a lot of investments, maybe, you don't have life insurance, maybe, and then you pass away. Now your spousal benefit is significantly reduced versus if you waited till your full retirement age or until age 70.
Spousal or survivor benefit.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I said spousal, I mean survivor. Yeah, what are you going to leave your spouse with? Yeah, afterwards, what does that look like? So are you potentially putting somebody at risk, with that? So that's a consideration. The less dollar amount is a consideration. And then the last one I was talking about was, are you going to still work? Because if you're still going to work and earn Social Security benefits, Uncle Sam says, not so fast. We're not going to pay you and you get to work still. So you can turn on your income stream, and on paper, there's an amount that they'll pay you. And they'll say, okay, Tim, we're going to give you, let's say your benefit is $2,000 a month. Okay, we're going to give you $2,000 a month, but you're still working and you're making more than a threshold number. And what do we say the threshold number is? For 2025, the threshold number is $23,400. Not a lot.
Right.
That's
got some little income producing hobby or part-time job. Sure. That's fine.
That's a little part-time job.
Got a normal full-time job. Not going to want to start early.
No. So you go so let's say you go over that, and then Social Security comes back and says, Tim, that was great. We're going to take $1 off the table for you. We're going to, for every $2 we were going to give you, we're going to give you $1. So that $2,000 benefit is a $1,000 benefit.
Wow.
And we're going to hold that money in our pocket for you until you hit full retirement age. Trust us. And when you do hit full retirement age, we'll boost your benefit and we'll give it back to you. Yeah. I mean, my it's experience sort of like in the math is that it doesn't quite work out.
Yeah.
That
now,
way.
I think I remember if this is still true, if one spouse takes it early, the other spouse could still be earning a good income and not be dinging, the first spouse that's taking it. Like, let's say my wife decides to take her Social Security early, but she's not going to work. But I keep working. My income doesn't go over and ding her Social Security.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's the case. But if I pull early and I keep working and I'm earning more than $23,000, the juice isn't going to be worth the squeeze on that. Probably.
No, it's definitely not. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're taking less of a benefit. You're having $1 off the table. You're suffering a reduced survivor benefit. It's just like negative. And we would say like, that's probably not in your best
I've always
interest.
felt like too, I mean, unless it was a situation, like I said, where like one couple's just not working anyway, they want to start early, that's fine. But outside of that, to me, the ability to start Social Security early is really because there's some kind of financial hardship.
Pretty much.
There's something going on, maybe health-wise, you're in between jobs, whatever it is, that you really need that income and you're not able to generate it in other ways. It's really there for a hardship. All right. So, hey, for the sake of time, I'll try to wrap us up here. Let's land the plane here over the last couple topics. What mistakes do people make when claiming Social Security? We feel like we might have touched on a couple of those, but let's wrap up any we might have missed.
I think a lot of the mistakes that they make is that they just make a decision without consulting wise counsel. Really.
Yep.
And I mean, it's easy for me to say because I'm an advisor. So one of mine is always like, you should work with an advisor to help you work through this because the decision is not trivial. It's not small. And you can say, oh, I took it and then I want to stop. And you can do that, but it's not easy. And it's not the path of least resistance. And most people don't do that. So you can claim too early. You could maybe wait too long. You just say, no, I'm going to maximize my benefit. But then nobody looked at your portfolio and you didn't run your portfolio and say, yeah, but what am I doing to myself in the meantime? What am I living on? What am I cannibalizing, myself while I'm waiting for this?
Like the golden goose laying the golden egg.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to sell that thing
and
do it.
Yeah, so you're not coordinating your other accounts. And I have had people who walked in and didn't know about that dollar takeoff for working. They claimed early and they kept working, and then they were surprised, like, wow, they're withholding all this money. What happened? How did that happen? Because they didn't read the fine print. Yeah, which just goes to seeking wise counsel, I think. So
I think that's
you can go too early or too late, and those could both be mistakes for you.
I think that's the mistake added. I think one mistake, I know the question is about claiming Social Security, but if you back up a little bit too, that mistake where you're not talking to your advisor about it, you're not talking about how does the spousal benefit rule work, you're not thinking about maybe an age difference with you and your spouse if you're married. And then the other one that's big for me, I'm the founder here, I'm the entrepreneur. When I talk to other entrepreneurs,